Got the whole world in your hands. You got the whole wide world in your... Hello, this is Bharat from Palmistry Unplugged, and we're continuing our talk on different aspects of the palm and special markings. And now I want to talk about the marriage lines. Now, you open up any palmistry book, especially older ones, and they will discuss marriage lines. And these are horizontal lines, as you can see in the diagram, which are above the heart line and below the base of the Mercury finger. The one thing I have to say about marriage lines is that they're not accurate whatsoever. I mean, this is the area of relating. So there is some indication of these lines with people who are very good with relating, for example, or not. Something with relating. But as far as if you have two marriage lines, you're going to get married twice, that's not true at all. And doesn't mean if somebody doesn't have any marriage lines at all, doesn't mean they're never going to get married. That's also not true. So it's not accurate whatsoever. I have found some aspects of the marriage lines that I do find to be somewhat true. One is if the marriage line is way, there's some distance between the heart line and the marriage line that talks about a late marriage or late relationship. I find that to be somewhat true, that I found. And if the line is straight and doesn't slope downwards or upwards, then it's usually a good marriage. Usually a person is having good relationships. If the line slopes downwards, it talks about some relationship that falls apart. Not falls apart, but loses energy, So it goes downhill. Something dissipates about the relationship. If you find the line going upwards with an upper slope, it talks about rising in love. So there is some indications about this, but not about like how many marriages a person's going to have, or it's not like that. And the other aspect here that's always talked about is children lines. Now, I have been for 30 years looking for accurate indications of children lines, and I have yet to find it. And that's been like a big mystery for me, why such an event in the person's life is not registered accurately on the hand. But just get back to this, they say little lines that are, tiny little lines that are perpendicular to the marriage lines will indicate children. And this is absolutely not true whatsoever. And if you pick up a palmistry book and they talking about the validity of marriage lines and children's lines, they just copied it from another book and it's not their own experience. And generally I would put a book like that away. So I wouldn't, if I was in a bookstore and thinking whether to purchase that palmistry book, I wouldn't recommend to purchase that, because that's just showing the person doesn't really know. Okay, so it's an interesting situation, because why aren't children lines in the hand? You can go to some Indian palmists, for example, and they can say about children, but all Indian palmists are also astrologists, so very often they're using astrology, or they're using numerology, or they're using their intuition. But I have yet to find somebody. I would love somebody to write me and say, yeah, I found an accurate way of determining children in the hand. Now, my hit about this is this. That the hand, what is the hand telling us? It's telling us a lot about capability, development, and a person's own capabilities, So by the time a person has a child, they're already developing, their capabilities are there. It's, because you can find a lot of information about the parents in the hand, because that deals with your development, the person's development. But children, you're already developed. Still, though, it's such a major event in a person's life. Why aren't there accurate indications of it in the hand? I have not been able to figure out. Though I think there's some validity to what I'm saying, what I've just said. Okay, so now what do I want to do? Excuse me for 1 second. I think I just messed something up here. I did. Okay. So now what I want to do next, besides the marriage lines, we will now get into, since we're talking about that, this would be the bracelets, the rasquettes, and the gypsy interpretation of the rings is if you have a lot of rings, like 3 or 4 rings in the hand, it indicates good health, long life, and good luck. And I have to admit, I generally find that to be true. People that have a lot of rings in the hand generally have good luck and good health. So I do find there is some truth to that. And one thing that the rings do show, they do have some indication about childbearing. If you have a line, which is shown in the diagrams here, if you have a ring that is solid and it's not rising up into the palm of the hand, that talks about normal childbearing. That means the labor is in a normal way. If that line is really broken and split and it just travels up into the palm, it talks about difficulties in childbearing, in the labor. And again, I find this to be generally true. There's a high probability that if a person has a good line, the bearing is going to be good, and if the line is broken and split, usually it's not. So I do find there is validity to this, and I also, then what I do is I'll use my intuition. Because sometimes somebody comes around me and I can feel, intuitively, that there's a baby and there's a soul that wants to come through this person. And most of the times that people ask me, am I going to have a baby or not? And I don't feel it, I don't sense it. So I'm usually, in this instance, I'm using my intuition. I mean, I am looking at the rings. And then I'm sensing something. So this is using the left brain and the right brain, which we way back in the early discourses have talked about, going from left brain, right brain, left brain, intuition, logic, intuition, logic. So this is one situation I'm doing that. I'm doing that actually quite a bit. So now, what else do I want to talk about? What you'll see in the hand very often is very thin capillary, what I call capillary lines. And this is like the etherical energy that's around the person. And when there is a lot of that, that means the person is like supercharged. Like their etherical atmosphere is always charged, like static electricity around them. And these people are usually very sensitive, because they have all this energy. They're always on go like that. And these people are usually high maintenance people. It's like you have a glass of water that is totally full, and you add one more drop, and of course it overflows. So very often these people are like that. They're high maintenance types, very sensitive people, and very often if they're having this very, very fine energy lines around them, they very often can be healers, because they're having this flow of energy that they can give to people. And in fact, they need to do this. These people need to ground this energy, because it's like having the motor on in neutral all the time. And after some years, the parts start to wear down, so there can be health issues. So I do recommend the people to ground themselves with, let's say, for example, Qigong, which is simple Chinese exercises, which grounds this energy, or Tai Chi or something like this. Yoga, actually, I don't find that it does do that for the people, but I do find that some Qi exercise with the hara, the energy on this area here, helps to ground that area, and touching people. So if somebody is like a teacher or a masseuse or practitioner, a yoga teacher, for example, I tell them, touch your students. Of course, in America, you have to be careful about how you touch people, but touch them in a way that they don't scream at you. But it's good to have that contact, put that energy on, touch the shoulder, this and that. That they have that feeling, So that is, I think it's quite important when people have this very thin energies. And sometimes you can see the flow. There can be a nice flow going towards the Saturn finger. There will be a nice flow going towards the Sun finger. And this will talk about creative projects that we'll be having within the next 6 months, or even success, some business success in the next 6 months if it's in Saturn. But that's when there's a nice flow. But you also see when the energy, those energy lines, those thin energy lines are completely chaotic, and then the person is really like, having all this static around them, So which can cause depression actually. And cause periods of fatigue because the subconscious has to deal with this energy all along, So, okay. So this is Bharat, Palmistry Unplugged, and we're talking about different aspects of the hand, getting to the end of my talks, actually. So we will go on and continue about this very soon. All right. Take care and bye. Thank you very much. Bye. Got the whole world in your hands, you got the whole wide world. In your hands, you got the whole